Hello everyone, my name is Kyle, and the topic that I'm going to bring up to you guys today is a topic that many people struggle with. It raises a lot of questions, so I want to start with a question for you guys today. If you're like me, do you ever sit around and wonder, why are there so many youth, so many young people that are dealing drugs, they're addicted to drugs, they're going to jail, they're causing trouble, they're dropping out of school, they're having children when they're teenagers? Have you ever wondered what's causing this? Why are American children that we see so much, why are they struggling in this area? Statistics are actually showing that divorce is the leading cause for this. And we're going to dig into a little bit more of that, show you guys some figures and see why this is such a detrimental factor to the success of children's lives. And the first thing that we need to address here is just the need. What's going on? Why is divorce such a common thing? Why are so many children affected by it? And the truth is that people just divorce too often. They make it an option when divorce should not be an option. Statistically, there are 40% of families that have children. This is not the families that do not have children. They divorce within only 1 year after their engagement, after they're being together. No matter what they've been through, they last about 1 year, and that's too soon. That 1 year is not enough time for you to go through your issues, try and work it out. 1 year is way too quickly to just throw it away and be done with it. Also, just some stories of my personal life with my family. Though my parents, they had their struggles like everybody does, they managed to stay together. And what's happened and how that's affected my life, I've gone to school, I'm doing school now, I'm successful in my career, I have a successful marriage myself, we have a beautiful boy, and we're living successfully. Another part of my family, he was affected by divorce. He's a cousin of mine, and now he has drinking problems. He has a hard time nailing down a good job. He's single, and he's not old, but he is getting to that age where he would like to be married, and it certainly affects him in that way. Statistically, this is where the big eye-opener is as to, the hope that people would stop doing what they're doing, stop this divorce, make it, just eliminate it as an option. Once you get married, let that be it. And so looking into some figures here, 63% of teenage suicides, and we hear about them all the time in the news, they're devastating to hear. 63% of those teenagers who commit suicide, their mother and their father had divorced. Some of these people may have been within a year. Either way, their parents were together at one time. Within their lifetime, for them to be affected by it, they got a divorce. Also, 90% of teenagers that run away from their home, go get into trouble, whatever it is, 90% of those teenagers, their parents were divorced. 85% of the teenagers that have behavioral issues, and I don't mean those behavioral issues that need clinical assistance, I mean those emotional issues, those attachment issues, anxiety, things of that nature. 85% of teenagers, their parents have troubled them in some way through their divorce. Also, 71% of high school dropouts, broken homes. 85% of youths in prison, broken homes as well. And over half of the teen moms that we see, there's even a TV show about it these days. It is not something that should be advertised, absolutely not. But over half of teen moms, they were part of a divorced family as well. So the main thing that we need to focus here, and with me being a new father, it's something that I pay closer attention to now than more so than ever. These are the children that my son will have to grow up with. Your children will have to grow up with. These are the kids that will influence our sons, our daughters later on. And if we don't get control of our own families, we control the destiny of who our children hang around with. And if our kids are influenced by the decisions that we as parents make, we as couples, mothers and fathers, that is the thing that can be eliminated, and we can help our children later on in the future in that way. This is a great investment into your children. It's the best investment you could ever make. And just to pose a question, another question is, if you knew, for example, that something that you were doing was causing a child to be addicted to drugs, addicted to other things, having troubles, would it still be an option? To me, it is absolutely not an option. So moving on to the next part here, what you're going to get out of working through your issues. And the way that we can do that, a solution for you guys that have marital troubles, because there's no shame in having a marital problem. I have them, you've probably had them, our moms and dads, we've seen them struggle through it. There's a reason that counselors, things like that, are available to us. I encourage you, go to counseling, premarital counseling, postmarital counseling. They have classes where you can stoke your marriage, put romance back into it. Speak to your friends, whether they're married or not. They may have some good advice for you. Families, your personal families, if they have a successful marriage, or it could just be anybody who has been successfully married, speak to them. They have great advice. Obviously, they're doing something right, because if they're getting through the hardest task ever, which is marriage, they're doing something right, and they have some advice. They have some way that they have worked out, and they can help you get through it as well. Also, start with your own family to decrease negative statistics. Not only negative statistics in America, in the world, but for your own family. There was a Nobel Peace Prize winner, his name was Alexander Solzhenitsyn, and through his Templeton address, he said that we can eliminate evil starting one household at a time, and this certainly applies to this. We can eliminate divorce, we can eliminate negative statistics through our own personal families, through our own households. We can eliminate so many troubles, so many prisoners would be freed, they would just not go in there, period. Also, 70% of inmates in prisons all across the country, whether teenager or not, they are derived from broken homes. This includes murderers, thieves, drug addicts, drug dealers, rapists. They are all from broken homes. They were not raised with families that could teach them morals, right and wrong. They didn't have anybody to speak to, therefore they just got thrown around to whatever was available, and it's very easy to get pulled into the wrong crowd if you don't have some moral support to keep you away from that. Also, just a personal story of my mom and dad. I know you guys heard me mention that they had their own marital problems, as many families do, and there's nothing wrong with that. I encourage you, understand that again. But my mother and father, when I was about 18 or 19 years old, they separated for about 6 months due to irreconcilable differences. They had issues that came up, financial, things of that nature, things happen. But after that 6 months, though it did mess with me personally, even in that short of a time, I realized I'm getting into more trouble, I'm staying out later, I'm doing things I wouldn't have normally done, because what I enjoyed as a teenager was to go home, to laugh with my mom and dad, hang out with my mom and dad. When that wasn't there, it opened up a door for trouble. But the moral to the story here is that though mom and dad had some issues, after that 6 months of being apart, through that time, they were able to realize that they really needed one another. They needed one another for their children, for themselves, for their finances, for their happiness. And they were able to actually reunite and become stronger than ever before. So if you have to separate, that's fine. But make sure you make it fair for your children. Make sure you guys are trying to work it out, seeking your counseling, talking to your family members, things like that. There are options available. Also, people will argue, well, what about I'm in an abusive relationship. I didn't really want this relationship. We rushed into it. That's where the importance of just acknowledging the importance of marriage comes in. For you to understand what marriage is, people nowadays are living together before they get married. They're doing things together as married couples would do, but they're not married. They're totally taking for granted the blessing of marriage. So I encourage you, seek premarital counseling. I know me and my wife did. It was an eye-opener. We kind of had to break out of that mentality, well, we're doing well, we know what we're doing. Turns out we didn't, and sometimes it's good to hear those simple things. So seek premarital counseling, postmarital counseling. Like I mentioned, those counseling sessions where you can put romance back into your marriage. Sometimes that's all that it takes. Also, don't live together before you get married. I encourage you. Now, certain situations, you may have to do that if it's a timing issue with your wedding, things like that, and that's fine. There is no judgment for that. But I encourage you, just though you don't live together, make sure you spend as much time together as possible so you guys can really get a feel, can I do this for the rest of my life? So spend several years together, unless you just absolutely know in your heart, but make sure that you are aware of that and you know for sure in your heart before you make that extra commitment, because it certainly is a commitment. And if you must divorce, you have to understand that your kids are susceptible to these negative factors. And though you don't want to be named, oh well, you may be part of the statistic, your family may not be that way, and we hope not, but just understand that there's a subconscious dealing when your mother and father, when as a child, you see your parents together your whole life, and then when they separate, it breaks you apart. You do things you wouldn't normally do to cope with that stress of it. But the best part about not divorcing, you're going to feel way better about putting in your effort than you would giving up. So I encourage you, invest in your family, invest in your children, invest in your husband, your spouse, your wife. Spend time together, learn about each other, do new things together, do old things together. Whatever it is that you guys have to do, there are ways to go around divorce, and the results are phenomenal as far as being successful for your children. You'll see your kids go through school. You'll see your own kids lead successful marriages, be successful parents themselves. You can set that up for your children for sure. And I want to show you guys one thing. I don't know if you guys can see this very well, but this is my own marriage license. And this is certainly more than just a pretty blue piece of paper with a little seal that you went and spent a few hours at the courthouse to get. What's behind this is a set of vows that you speak to your husband, your wife. Take those into heart, remember those, speak them back to each other. That's certainly a good way that you can remember why you obtained this marriage license. A lot of people see this as a piece of paper. It's not just a piece of paper that comes in an envelope several weeks after. This is something that you want to hang up forever. Put it somewhere where you can see every day. Remember that it's something that you had to work very hard for. And again, I just encourage all of you guys, work through your issues, speak to your children, make it fair for your children. Allow your children to give advice to you. A lot of the best advice that you can see comes from elementary kids. They will speak their minds about things because they're taught well. And as a parent, that's what you have to do. So I encourage you, pray with one another, speak with one another, and work through these